Again, my name is Steve Goranson. My company is Action Coach, and I'm going to sort of start us off a little bit today, and then Hector and Carl will come in and share their secrets on web marketing. And I'll tell you up front, there really are no secrets. What we're going to be teaching you today is not like brain surgery stuff. It's basic business principles, but it's really how to apply it is the most important thing. So most of this stuff you can probably know, it's common sense, but it's what do you do with the information and being able to do it at the right time. So just a quick question. So how many people came here because they want to learn how to increase revenue in their business? Anybody? Sure. That sounds like a good. Who'd rather learn how to increase the profitability in the business? Right, because you could actually sell yourself into bankruptcy, right, Ben? Mm-hmm. If you're not careful. So I'm going to be wrapping up today, and I'm going to be talking about how you take the strategies that they've talked about and how do you turn it into a formula for profitability. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So we really appreciate the time that you've taken here today because everybody is busy. There's lots of things going on, and really, business doesn't mean busyness, because your time is really your most valuable assets, and how you utilize that time is really the secret to most success. And there was a wise man that once said, you could spend all your money, you could always make it back, but once you spent your time, the time is gone forever. So it's how you invest your time is really the secret to success. So what we're going to do here today is really what we want to do for you is W Square Media Group with Carl and Hector. They're going to expose you to, like I said, it's really some basic marketing principles on how you can get results from the web. I'm going to be going in and I'm going to again be talking to you about Action Coach's 5 drivers of profitability that every business needs to be focused on to drive the profitability in the business. So I guess the question that we have here today is, can we be your coach for the next hour? Does that sound good? Yeah? Come on, let's get some excited. All right, very good. All right, so what you're going to be able to expect here today are what I like to call is BFOs, blinding flashes of the obvious. Because what happens is when we're in business all day, we're all smart, we've been in business for a while, we know most of this stuff, but we're stuck in our business, and most of the stuff we see is right here. So our job here today is to pull you back and get a little bit of perspective. And that's what we call, and every once in a while you just go, aha, you're going to go, yeah, I remember, I used to do that. Or I had this one client, it turned into a joke. It was like every time we talked about it, it's like, oh, I used to do that, or I used to do that, but why don't you do it anymore? It's like, I don't know. So that's where we got him getting back and doing his basics, and his business turned into a nice success. So when it comes about, I always like to start my seminars talking about this line. Are we above the line or below the line? And that line is the line of success. We all know people that are in our lives that blame others, they come up with excuses, or they might be in total denial that they might be the problem themselves. Anybody know anybody like that? Have worked with anybody? And usually you have a team that sort of looks like this, right? Yeah. Right? So what we want to do, and most successful people, is they're going to sit down and they're going to look at every opportunity that comes away, and they're going to take ownership of those opportunities. They're going to be accountable for the results they want, and most importantly, they're going to be what I call response-able. They're going to be responsible for what the results that they need to get. And so what I want to say is, everybody today, do we agree that we're all going to play above the line? Yes? Yeah. All right, very good. So with that, we're going to go ahead, and I'm now going to bring it up, and I'm going to introduce and have Hector and Carl come up and share some great ideas of what they do and help you get some what you need to do to work with the web. So with that.
All right, thank you. Now, you heard a little bit about what Steve came here for today, but see, what Hector and I have come here today to do is ask you one burning question, and that's this. How many of you really are surprised that the government waited to the last second to end the shutdown? Anybody? No. Okay, And when it comes to our business, we're used to things like that because the powers that be routinely throw a monkey wrench into the works from time to time, don't they? Only when they do it, when Google does it, they don't call it a shutdown, do they? What do they call it?
They call it an update.
An update. But basically it works the same way, doesn't it? I mean, one day, you're the master of the universe, and the next day you're lost in cyberspace. And wouldn't it be great if somebody would come up with a system that would enable you to bulletproof your web presence so you didn't have to get whipped around every time the internet or the search engines decided to shake out the rug. Wouldn't that be great? How many people would like to do that?
Yeah.
All right. But the problem is, in order to do that, you have to understand three things. The first thing you have to understand is, where'd the web come from? The second thing you have to understand is, where's it going? And third, and most importantly, you got to answer this question. What the heck does www really mean? Anybody? What do you think it means?
World Wide Web.
Well, World Wide Web, I've heard some people call it the Wild Wild West. But for the majority of businesses, you know what it really means? Why doesn't it work? Because 95% of small businesses have little or no presence on page one of the search engines. It's a fact.
It's actually probably a bigger number than that now. I mean, it was every day we get more and more websites, the number gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, and the problem is, how can you hope to keep up with the internet when it's constantly reinventing itself, isn't it? I mean, think about it, right? Remember, how many of you have been working the web since like the year 2000? Anybody? Well, remember back then, you could set it and forget it. You'd build a website maybe every 2 or 3 years because the only thing that was important was having a website and a search engine, right? Back then, there were no blogs, there were no social nets. Forget video, you could hardly stream graphics back then.
Right. There wasn't enough bandwidth to download the video in the first place. Blogs didn't exist, and you didn't have to publish anything weekly because people weren't reading blogs. Social media didn't exist.
But today, you've got all these other things, and guess what? Failure is not an option. These are no longer optional. If you really want to get any traction on the search engines, you've got to not only have these, you've got to feed them on a regular basis.
This is the web as we see it today. As a matter of fact, if you see those other gears, the unnamed ones, there's a whole bunch of unnamed ones out there. So if you're not doing all of these things, you're not making Google happy.
Yeah,
And Google really controls the web for the most part today.
Well, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. But when you come down to it today, there really are 5 essential elements of online marketing, aren't there?
First one is search, and there's 2 flavors.
This isn't Baskin Robbins. You only have 2 flavors.
You got paid and unpaid. So what we call organic and then paid.
There's YouTube videos, right? Blogging, which we talked about. Hector's favorite is,
Social media,
that's right. And then last but not least,
touch marketing.
those are really the secret weapons today of the internet. If you're working all of those successfully and feeding them, some of course you have to feed them daily, some weekly, some monthly, but if you are providing valuable content on a regular basis, really that's what it takes to work the web to win today. Okay, now how many of you in here really think you have a really good bead on what it takes to work the web to win?
How many people got page 1 position for whatever it is they're working on?
Organically, not paying for it.
And I don't mean the name of your company. They type in your name. That doesn't count. Talking about for your keywords that you're really fighting for.
Yeah, and what's the reason that we go through all this stuff, all this trouble? Well, mainly because there's this 800-pound gorilla in the room called Google that currently controls more than 80% of search. I mean, that's almost monopoly.
Yeah, and that's network and non-network. I mean, so they control the bulk of all internet. I mean, I'm a big Yahoo guy, and Yahoo gets a big, like 6%. Yeah, and Bing is like 1.5.
In fact, Google is so popular that it's actually not only a noun, it's a verb, isn't it? I mean, as successful and powerful as you know, Steve Jobs and Apple computers. Have you ever heard of anybody Appling it?
No, don't
But
have.
everybody Googles it, right? That's how powerful they've become. But the problem is that 97% of the people who actually surf the web do not go beyond page 1.
As a matter of fact, 67% never go below the fold. So if you have a laptop, they don't even scroll down. So if you're not above the fold and you're trying to get business on the internet, you're out of luck.
Yeah, and if you're not on page 1, you're pretty much not in the game at all.
Right.
All right. So, and the problem is as Google consolidates its position, I mean, this has been going on for the last few years because of the fact that right now you've got right around 380 million websites online and 130,000 new sites came online today. And everybody wants to be on Google page 1, right? How many actual opportunities are there on page 1? How many listings are there? Even if you include the paid listings, maybe 20, 24?
20, 30.
Tops.
Yeah.
Okay, so do the math. And because of that fact, where before, like I said, during the 90s and early 2000s, we could get you onto page 1 in as little as 24 hours. The average today is 4 to 6 months.
And not only that, if you couldn't get on page 1 for one, you get on page 1 for another one. So you really weren't stuck, but now this is the game.
It's called the funnel effect, okay? Everybody's trying to
game.
funnel into that one big search engine. And of course, there are some ways that you can get into the game a little faster, aren't
So how
there?
many people want to know some shortcuts? Right? Shortcuts are good?
Shortcut number 1, pay to play. Anybody here do AdWords campaigns? I know a few people in the room do. But you know what the problem with AdWords is, right? What's the nature of the beast? It's pay per click. It's not pay per sale, is it? It's not pay per sign up, is it?
It's not pay per lead, it's pay per click.
Yeah, and the problem is not only can prospects click on the link, who else can?
Your competitors.
Absolutely, and they do.
And they do that.
And you know, that's the problem is a lot of people that have gotten into AdWords, they tell us, well, it doesn't work. Because you have to understand something, it's not a simple system. If you've ever gone on to AdWords and looked at the, you know, the actual control panel, I mean, there's layers and layers and layers. Unless you understand what all those layers mean and how to basically filter out the unwanted traffic that Google's going to try to push on you, you can spend a lot of money and end up with nothing at the
And
end
not only
of the
that,
day.
they love to change it. They change it regular. Now, I mean, I've been an AdWords advocate for about 10 years, and I've seen it go through probably 100 changes.
Like everything else, okay?
Yeah.
The search engines, the websites, the browsers, they're constantly changing themselves, and you're expected to keep up with the changes. And one of the changes is AdWords isn't the only game in town now. That's very important.
So now you have pay-per-click in Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Plus, there are a few other avenues that you could actually go after. And of course, there's retargeting, and there's all kinds of new kinds of pay-per-click type things. So
But this is the one way to jump to the head of the line, isn't it?
just one way.
You want to learn another one? Ever heard of a little company called YouTube? Who owns YouTube? Anybody know? There you go. Absolutely. They bought YouTube. They now own it. And guess what? It's a very popular place to go. There are 800 million visitors per month currently on YouTube.
That's a huge number. When you think about it, I mean, what's the largest social media? Facebook.
What's the second
What's the
largest?
second largest? It's YouTube. And YouTube actually has 800 million subscribers. It's a huge number.
Yeah, in fact, if you took all of the TV stations on the planet and rolled up all of their programming, they couldn't come close to equaling what YouTube puts out. They're that big, you know. And in fact, speaking of social networking, 700 videos are shared on Twitter every minute.
We don't have the statistics for Facebook or the other ones, but all social networks use YouTube. So they're being played on all these other networks all the time.
Yeah. And one of the other really cool things about a video is the fact that you can turn your best customers into your best salespeople. How many people in here use video testimonials? You know, because if you put a customer in front of a camera for 60 seconds, they can say things about you can't say about you, and it's 100% believable. Because when you look at a written testimonial on a website, who do you automatically assume wrote it? The guy that runs the website, right? It's just too easy to gain. Well, you can tell when somebody has a real customer, not an actor, but I mean a real customer standing in front of the camera. And that's worth its weight in gold, because that's one of the big stumbling blocks for people actually coming across and buying from you is credibility. Because remember what I told you? WWW means Wild Wild West.
Right. This is another very important factor. You notice that 50% of the videos are rated and commented on. In social media, rating and commenting is very important to Google. It's much higher in videos than it is in Facebook or any of these other areas. So this is a very important factor, and it can jack up your rating very quickly.
Yeah, in fact, videos are 5 times as likely to be clicked on as a website. It's just a statistical fact. And today, there are more than 4 billion videos that are watched every single day on YouTube. And if you know how to optimize a YouTube video, you can jump from YouTube to Google page 1.
Pretty quickly. Not only that, it's a less competitive arena because most people don't know how to do videos, or they think it's too big of a pain in the neck.
Yeah, and the bottom line is if you go on and you do a Google search, how many videos will pop up on a page? 1 or 2. So if you've got 20 or 30 links and only 1 or 2 videos, if you have an opportunity to make a choice between getting your video or your website on page 1, take the video. You'll laugh all the way to the bank. So let's talk about what you can do with online videos. In fact, I brought along a little prop with me, which Hector, what do you call this, Hector?
Call it with a Gag-O-Matic.
Okay, this is called the Aura Brush. Has anybody ever heard of the Aura Brush? It's not a toothbrush. What is it, Hector?
It's a tongue brush.
The world's first tongue brush. This inventor actually came up with the design for the tongue brush, and what he did was he patented it, He actually created a whole warehouse full of these things, and then he started going around to the big boxes, right, figuring, hey, I got the only tongue brush in town. Want to put me on the shelf? What do you think happened to him?
They laughed him out of the store.
So now he's desperate. What do you do when you're desperate in business?
You Google.
You Google it. And through luck or chance or divine inspiration, he somehow managed to blunder into the professor of marketing at Brigham Young University. And the professor was so enamored with this product, the Aura Brush, that guess what he did?
He passed it on down to one of his undergrads and said, hey, what can you do with this? So they did some research and they found that they thought that 8% of the U.S. market might buy this product. Now, the U.S. market at the time was about 34 million users, they thought. So that 8% was actually a pretty nice number. But they still didn't know what to do, so they came up with, let's come up with an idea.
Yeah, so guess what they did? They shot a YouTube video. And actually, if you look at the video, which is still online, by the way, it was shot in a pool hall. But it's funny, and it was quirky, and it was wildly successful. In fact, it was so wildly successful, guess how many views that video has?
Somebody,
Take a wild guess.
you get a prize.
250 million.
Somewhere in between the two, it's actually 40 million views. In fact, they are the third most popular channel on YouTube after Apple Computer and Old Spice.
And again, think about it. You don't have to have a million views to make money. If you had 500 people taking your offer up because they saw your video, would that be profitable for you? If you had 1,000 people, it would be wildly profitable.
And look at it this way, it was wildly profitable for Aura Brush because they sold 1 million units online before Walmart came back and said, oops, sorry. And that's actually where Hector got this.
I bought it at Walmart.
So think about it. If online video could do this for a company that sells tongue brushes, what can it do for yours?
Right.
But we're not done.
Yeah.
Because one of the other reasons to do video is, guess what? Google likes videos. In fact, they look for stuff called mixed media.
And it's not just videos. It could be audios, podcasts,
Photos.
photo galleries, I mean, slideshows. There's tons of different kinds of mixed media that Google really likes to have. And again, the more you mix the media, the more Google likes it.
Yeah, and unlike taking 4 months or so to generate a page one result with your typical SEO scenario with a website, you can jump a video. We've been able to jump videos onto Google page one as little as 30 days.
And
a lot faster.
And if you have a mixed media medium, like a blog with a video and pictures,
yeah, you can reuse it too.
Pretty fast too.
And as we pointed out before, people that are online are 5 times as likely to watch a video. But wait, there's more.
Yeah. And blogs is one of our favorite things. I mean, we use this as a centerpiece because blogs are mixed media rich. That is, you can stick a video in it, you can stick pictures in it, you can stick podcasts in it, and you can load it up with all these things, and it gives all these rich connections. And those rich connections, those backlinks, are very important to Google.
And Google is gaga about blogs.
And plus, people can comment on them and rate them.
And repost them.
And repost them. So it has lots of features that makes it easy to get placement in the search engine.
And you'll notice we put Blogger up there. How many people in here use Blogger? How many people in here use, what's the other one, Hector?
WordPress.
WordPress.
WordPress is actually 65% of the market, but Google doesn't own WordPress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and the reason that's important is because you see, Blogger, not only do they own it, but they understand how to search it. So the Google bots, could go through that thing like lightning fast.
Right. It understands what their own product is, but it has to figure out whatever WordPress is or somebody else is doing.
And we've literally been able to get our blogs on page one of Google in as little as 24 hours. It's one of the quickest ways to go from Blogger to Google.
As soon as you make a blog post in Blogger, Google is already indexing it.
Immediately. It's one of the few things that they actually do that with.
So if you look up here, you'll see that, we've actually done, this is something that's new that Google's doing. When a person logs in, Google's tracking you. So anything that's attached to you will show up right away in a high level for you. So if you're not being tracked, it goes onto the keywords and you'll see them pop up very quickly. So our blogs, when we write them, we actually make sure that the keywords are in the title usually, but they're also they're normally naturally written in the document itself. We don't try and keyword stuff or anything like that. We just try and make sure that that's the subject and that's what we're talking about. And again, that's the keyword that's in the subject.
In fact, one of the reasons we've been so successful with marketing to Google is because we don't game the system in any way. We just give the gorilla what he wants, and lots of it.
Right.
That's the best way to do it, and that makes us pretty much bulletproof, because when Hummingbird came out and everybody fell off the face of the planet, we moved around a little bit and then we came right back up. Some places we came up higher.
We never left page 1 and we never fell below the fold. So again, just giving the gorilla what it wants is the plan. The reason most people don't do it is because it requires them to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to feed the gorilla every day, all the time.
And speaking of daily feed.
So the social media specifically has to be fed daily. I mean, if you're not producing posts on a daily basis, it's not going to work. And the kind of posts that you need to produce are not commercials. They have to be posts that people want. So if you're focusing on a specific clientele, you have to give them what they want. It's irrelevant what you want. You have to give them what they want. If you give them what they want, they will follow you, they'll become loyal, and they'll let you slip in a coupon here and there and those kinds of things.
Yeah, but we're not talking about telling them about your vacation adventures.
Right. We're not talking about the oral brush or toothbrushing or making breakfast.
Or worse, just keep sending them ads. You know, if you want to sell on the social networks, it's not about selling, it's about telling.
Right. If you want to sell on it, you do pay-per-click. Push technology is something that's neat about social media, and then you can actually give somebody some really cool stuff that they like, and then say, oh, by the way, come check this out. And they actually follow that about 50% of the time, especially if it's a brand new follower. That's something that we've been working on very diligently, and we'll actually be hopefully getting a reward tomorrow when we go to the JBJ BizTech Awards.
So the thing too is that you can take the people from your social network and send them to other sites. That's what makes social networking so powerful also.
What is a post in social networking? Anybody have an idea? What is it actually from a Google point of view? It's a backlink. It's a connection from your site
to somewhere else.
And if you do lots of posts, it creates lots of backlinks. Okay, and that doesn't mean you want to go crazy, but again, as long as you're giving people what they want, those backlinks become very important to Google. So if I write a post that says, this is a really cool thing, whatever I say, okay, and then I put a URL address in there.
Check it out.
That's a backlink to that site, okay? And you can actually have multiple URLs within a post. So you can talk about a subject, and then, so by the way, if you want to find out about us, click here.
And if you want to know how many social nets there are, I did a little Google search a few weeks ago, and I found that there were like 238 at current levels. So I mean, you could pretty much spend all your time doing nothing but posting out to the social nets. So what we do is we concentrate on the ones that Google likes.
We concentrate on the top 5, and maybe Pinterest would be the 6th that we would add in there. So here's another secret that you want to know about. How many people think you got to have one website? Really, you should have several.
Unless you're selling one flavor of one ice cream.
Right. Or you're only selling oranges, you have an orange page.
Yeah, but if you're selling apples, oranges, and bananas, okay, you don't want somebody coming off the search engines looking for bananas and you're talking about apples or oranges. So having multiple pages, currently we have, what, about 8?
Yeah.
That talk about different specialties that we deal with. In fact, these are all ours.
Yeah.
The one over there, it's Working the Web to Win, which is our radio show, and over there, that's our video.
We have Social Slam Dunk, we have Club W Cube. We have several ones, and they're focused on individual targeted items.
And
so when somebody lands on there, they're seeing exactly what they were looking for.
And they're on Google page 1, and they get their own traffic streams. And the traffic streams are highly convertible because we're talking the talk. So when they're, like I said, when they're looking for video, boom, as we talk video. When we're talking about doing social media, we send them over to Social Slam Dunk. It becomes much more efficient that way. And not only does it get you on page 1, but the most important thing at the end of the day is what? Conversion, right? How many people actually buy from you? So it's not like it was, like I said, it's not $19.99 anymore. If you send them onto a page and you got 25 different things you're talking about, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot when it comes to conversion.
An easy way to lower your bounce rate is to have a very focused page.
So the bottom line is, more sites equal more results. And obviously the site should include the keyword that you're shooting for.
When we wrote our article and did the radio show the other day about Hummingbird, the big thing is today is they're talking about semantics and that the computers can read and understand what you're saying. That's okay. You still have to have keywords because it's got to have a subject.
Yeah.
Okay? And yes, they can understand what you're saying, but you have to have a focused subject, because if your subject is all over the place, you're going to get ranked very low because Google doesn't know how to rank it high. It's not about one thing, it's about 10 things.
Yeah. And the important thing is this. Most advertising is saturation bombing. You know, you throw a whole lot of stuff up there and you hope you blunder into a bird. It's kind of like using a shotgun. Where using the internet, it's more like a smart bomb, because what you want to do is you want to only fish in the pond where the fish are biting.
And you want to be fishing for a specific kind of fish.
And using the right bait.
And so on. Yeah.
So let's get down to, again, the end of the trail here is giving you a roadmap to online success. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to show you the 10 things that you need to do to make all this stuff work. So you might definitely want to take some notes here. Okay, the first thing that you need to do before you start anything is what?
Keyword search.
And not only keyword search, but you want to find out where are the high value, high traffic keywords. And you can part the curtain at Google and they will tell you that. There are tools that are designed exactly to tell you where the high traffic keywords are. Then once you develop your keyword, what do you want to do? Well, you obviously want to shoot some videos that talk about those particular keywords, right? Because again, when somebody comes in from the website, if they come in from the search engine, there's about a 99% probability they've never done business with you, so they don't know who you are, they don't trust you, they don't know what makes you special. And a 60-second video can cure all that very quickly, because guess what? That's all the time you've got today. People spend about a minute on a website.
And if you get them excited about that, more than likely they'll click on their testimonial video right away.
Then you're going to create your landing pages that correspond to these high-value keywords and videos, right? So like I said, question, answer, conversion. That's what it's all about.
And of course, you're going to attach them to your blog. You have to feed the blog, and you're going to attach them to all your social nets. Having the social nets on there and not being fed is a kiss of death. If you're putting these internet properties out there and nobody's ever coming to them, nobody's ever reading them, it's like putting billboards up in the desert and throwing money down a hole.
Okay, so once you get it all together, don't you think you might want to test the water? Okay, and AdWords is actually a great way to test the keywords, to test your offer, to test your campaign out. Because again, if it's going to take you 4 to 6 months to get all this other stuff into action to raise your ranking up organically, don't you want to know when you finally reach the promised land if you've got the right pitch, if you've got the right offer?
And we have a little
AdWords is a
special
great
that
way to
we'll
do
talk
that.
about later on that you can use to help
To get
test the
started.
water.
You don't spend a lot of money on it, but you want to spend enough to test the water. And Steve will talk to you more about testing and measuring in a little bit. Very important. All right. So now, of course, you think, okay, I can put my feet up on the desk, let the money roll in? Not hardly.
Not going to happen.
Now you got to start feeding the beast, okay? So you got to continue to optimize your site, right? You got to continue to add
call that
content.
tweaking.
Yep.
We have to tweak the site.
You got to continue adding content daily on your social, weekly on your blogs, and monthly on your videos at the very least if you want to really get into the game.
Those are very least. If you actually double those numbers, you can actually increase your traffic by tenfold.
Yep. Then once you actually start generating results, what do you want to do next?
You want to start doing touch marketing. If you're not going back and trying to get an extra bite out of that apple, you're missing out. Because again, studies show that most people don't make a buying decision until 7 to 10 touches. That's a pretty big number. Some studies say 7 to 12, 14 touches, and so on. So again, once you get the name and number, you need to go back to them, providing them with useful information and useful touches that will hopefully make them take the next step.
And then you got to, is that push technology?
That's not push
No,
technology. Then you want to use things to push out different things to them that is feeding them what they want. Again, if you really want to make customers your friend, you have to give them what they want. It's about them. It's all about them. If you try and ever make it about yourself, you will fail. You'll fail miserably. So when we're talking about social media, which is where we're using most of the push technology, you're feeding them information that they care about. And how do you know what they care about? Well, you do a lot of experimenting and watch the statistics. We're really big on statistics, understanding what's going on after the fact. Because if you're not testing and measuring, the likelihood of you failing is very high.
Okay, so we got all that so far? Now one little step left to go. Now you can schedule a nervous breakdown. Because I mean, this is a mountain of work, isn't it? And somebody's got to do it. Simple as that. You know, so when we talked about the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Do you know what Hector and I call the internet? We call it the elephant.
The elephant.
And what's the easiest way to eat an elephant? Anybody?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time,
That's
right? So now that you know what the elephant is, what he needs, now you got to find a way to make the job make sense. Okay? So we're going to talk about that because this is the real elephant,
The real
isn't
elephant.
it?
Right.
These are all the things that need to be done.
The Rugelberg of the internet.
You got that one right this time. I love it. So, sometimes, there's only so many hours in the day, right? So to make this thing feasible, what you have to decide is this. How much of it are you going to do, and how much is somebody else going to do? Because guess what? There's only so many hours in a day, isn't there? So one thing we haven't been able to do yet, do time warps or anything like that, so we can add a few more hours into a day, right?
Might get another 12.
So if you're not going to do all the work, what's the solution?
Outsource some.
That's right. Do some outsourcing, right? Now, the thing is, though, is you have to take outsourcing with a grain of salt, because you want to be very careful whom you trust with your web presence, because they literally have your life in their hands. And we've literally had to actually do some damage repair for some clients who gave their web presence to somebody who said, I'll get you up there in 2-3 days. Well, they did, but they did it by gaming the system, which is something that now the spiders are very smart. And when they catch you, not only do they knock you out of the box, they'll push you so deep, you may never come back to page
You
one.
can actually be blackballed for life.
That's right.
That's one of the things that Google does. On your desk, there's a card that has 5 points on it. So we talk about the 5 unique selling propositions of W Squared Media Group. And the 2 most important ones I think that we should talk about, well, 3. One, we have proprietary technologies that we've invented that have produced proven results. The second one is we provide flex plans which allow customers to change what's going on within the plan. And most agencies and clients will not do that. Most companies won't do that. Once you sign a contract, the contract is locked in for the life of the contract.
Yeah, and the thing too, another reason that a lot of people have trouble really getting consistent results online is because they do all this work when they're doing, outsourcing it. Sometimes they'll outsource to 4 or 5 different entities. Right. And sometimes these guys don't get along well. In fact, sometimes
they think they're enemies.
Yeah, they'll really fight it out. And if you don't have somebody that's on the same page so that when you get blog and you get the video, you can have somebody putting the video onto the blog so you can,
so they're
double your
working
pleasure.
together in synergy. That's very important. And again, that's one of the things that we do. So if you look at the number one is we're all digital, we're all in-house, lots of synergy, a lot of communication between the team. And the last one is guaranteed results. So our contracts have real bite in them. If we don't produce what we say, there's a consequences to us, and that's a good thing for the client. So
yeah, because when it's all said and done, what are you really trying to accomplish online?
clicks into cash is what I look at.
You're really looking to turn your computer into a cash machine, right? Well, guess what? We can do that.
Okay, for you.
And if you want to keep more of that money from going through your fingers, this is the guy you need to talk to, Steve, the action coach.
So Carl and Hector was really good at giving you guys a lot of ideas. And what I want to do is show you how do you take those ideas and focus it in, because it's all about, Ben will agree with me, is the language of business is what? Accounting, right? Is the numbers. And it's like going into business and not knowing what the numbers are is like playing a football game and not having any idea what the score is, where you are on the field, and so what play do you call? You don't know, right? So what we're going to be talking about today is, and what I want to do is, how do you get better results? Because these are some results that I've gotten from a variety of my different clients from a variety of different industries, right? But there's a couple of numbers that I want you to show up. And the first one, it was a 46% increase and 61% in profit. The last one, 62% increase in profitability. Do you think that is possible over a year, a couple year period? Is that? I'm going to show you a formula that I use with my clients that enabled them to be able to do that. You ready? Does that sound good? All right. So our definition within the Action Coach, we have a 6-step process in which we help our clients really build a better business. The second step in there is the niche. And niche is all about creating predictable cash flow in the business, but it's all about also creating what? No price competition. How many people here feel that they have to compete on price? Okay. What would you like to learn how to rather sell on value than on price, right? All right, so we're going to talk quickly a little bit on that, because there's really 2 keys to developing your niche. Does anybody have an idea what those 2 things might be? No? Two things. One is USP. Anybody know what USP is? Stand for unique selling proposition. How do you differentiate yourself from your competition? And then the second thing is a guarantee. Do you have a guarantee in your business? Because what's the purpose of a guarantee? To lower the threshold of resistance for the people wanting to do business with you. Every business should have sort of a guarantee. Like, Carl and Hector talked to you about what their guarantee is. What about one of the more famous ones is that of Federal Express. What's their guarantee? Anybody? Is it, if it positively has to get there overnight, right? Or it's free, right? So what came first, the guarantee or the system to generate the guarantee? System? You know what? You're all wrong. It's the guarantee. You have to start with the end in mind and then create the process to get to that guarantee. Does that make sense? Okay. So what it comes down to is, what does it mean to be unique? Unique doesn't mean that you all have to be able to sell on value and not on price. Doesn't mean that you have to be better than your competition. You just need to be different. Now in this picture, there's a bunch of rocks. They're all different rocks, but is there one unique? That makes it stand out. So what are you doing in your business to make it stand out? I'm going to share a story from another action coach. I can't remember what city, but it just stuck with me, which is a perfect example here. There was a plumber client of his, and what they had was they've been doing some great work together, and they were winning and he had won a business award from the chamber from his city, and it was at night, and it was a big black tie affair and stuff, and he was getting ready to go with his wife, and he was dressed up in this tux, ready to accept his award, and then all of a sudden the phone rang, and then his wife gave him that look that if you answer that phone, I'm going to shoot you. Has anybody seen that look before? I know I've had. But he goes, I have to answer it because the way the system works, if it's getting to me, that means somebody else isn't answering it, and we need to do it. So he picks up the phone, and it's like, oh yes, I know her. Yeah, it was a referral from somebody else, and it's like, no problem. I could fix that. I'll be there in 10 minutes. And his wife's going, what are you talking about? It's like on the way. It's really easy, and it's a referral from a really good customer. So he goes to the house, he comes in, gets his plumber stuff in, knocks on the door, and the lady opens the door and her mouth drops. Why? She's never seen a plumber with a tux. Goes in, 5 minutes, boom, in and out, and she was happy. And you know what happened that next week? They kept getting phone calls, and what were the people asking? Are you the plumbers that come in a tux? Because what is this lady? She just kept talking about these guys. This plumber that came in and was in a tux, and so they actually changed the whole uniforms and stuff. And that's how they differentiated themselves from their competition. So you don't need to be better. You just have to be different. Okay. So in this case, where would you rather eat? You have mom's wholesome food here, or you got grandma's food, right? Probably the exact same recipes, but one is a little bit different. If you got kids, you're going to go to grandma's. If you don't have kids, you just want nice wholesome food, you probably go to mom's cafe. But the thing is it's probably the exact same food, but you have to understand who your clientele is to be able to offer them what they need. So, I'm going to ask Ben the question here. All right. So what do accountants look at is what is marketing? Marketing is concerned as a what? It's on what side of the P&L? A loss. That's right. It's an expense, right? Right? Why is it considered an expense?
Well, that's what you want me to say, but yeah.
Because the accountants, all they see is the money going out, right?
Costs money.
But as entrepreneurs, we look at marketing as what? An investment. Why? Because there should be more money that comes in than goes out. It's as simple as that. So why is this true for some businesses and not for others? Anybody know?
The way you spend your money.
Exactly. But actually, I had a college professor, and he said that 50% of all advertising was wasted. If he could just figure out which 50%, he'd be a millionaire. And the thing that I love about Action Coach is that Brad Sugar's the founder of Action Coach. We got 1,000 coaches all over the world. He figured out which 50%. By doing two things. Carl and Hector mentioned it. Does anybody know what those could have been? See if you were listening to them. Testing and measuring. You need to know where your advertising is coming from. You need to know how much does it cost you to buy a customer. Because if you know that for every $1,000 you're going to get 10 customers, right? How much does it cost you a customer? $100. Is that good or bad? It depends. If your product costs, if you only make a penny per product, no. But if you make $1,000 per product, yeah. So it's like, how often, if I would give you, if you give me $100 and I give you $1,000, how often would you want to do that? Right? But you don't know unless you can test and measure. All right. So this is an example of an ad, and I call it a tombstone ad. You know, it could be a newspaper ad. It could be I've seen web pages in the past that looked as bad. What does this guy do? You really don't know what this guy. He does everything. That's almost like the same thing as what Carl and Hector were saying. Is you have a website that throws everything that you do there, right? And what happened was he would spend $800 a month on this ad and get absolutely no leads from it. But then what we started doing is we said, all right, when somebody does call you, what are the questions that they tend to ask? What are the things that are most important to them? And then we took that information and we turned it into an ad. So what are the five questions you should ask before hiring a web development company, right? You know, do you offer money back guarantee? Do you offer, you market my website? Do you offer a guarantee? Right? That was one of the things that Carl and Hector said that they do. Do you help me with my content on my website? You know, these are things, and what happened, the difference between this ad is they got $16,000 of revenue in 6 weeks. Why? Because it was focused on exactly what the customer wanted. You know, what's the difference between, what were some of the differences that you saw between this ad and the other ad, do you know? One, where was the headline on the other one? Headline was way up on top. Down, was there a call to action? Yeah, it's all the way on the bottom. It said call Tom, but where's the phone number? Oh, you got to search for everything on this ad. Okay? But here, it's, you have, the most important thing is on top. What is that? The headline. That's your ad for your ad. That's what's going to drive people to read the rest of the content that you had. So this is no different than trying to really create a web page and have then a call to action of what you want them to do. Whether it's you want them to call, whether you want them to click on it and get more information, whether you want them to click and actually start chatting with somebody online. There's a variety of things that you could do to get them, but you need to know where that process is. So, we all know, so that make sense to everybody? Because I wanted to just touch on some of the things that I work with my clients on. But it really comes down to how do we drive profitability in a business? You know, we could have these great ads and all this other stuff, but now the question is we all want more things. We want more leads, we have more customers, more revenue, and more what? Profit, exactly. All right, so we can't just wake up one day and say, hey, we want more customers, we want more revenue, we want more profit. What do we need to do? What are the drivers? What are the factors that really come down when you break things into the lowest common denominator that will deliver customers? There's two numbers that you need to know in your business. First one is, a number of leads, right? The second one is your conversion rate. So, and what was one of the things that Carl and Hector were saying is that what the web is really good at is a way to be able to test and measure, and you know how many leads are coming in. You know what your conversion rate is, right? Then once we have that, the next thing is on revenue. What are the two drivers of revenue? Once we have customers, the next phase is what is the average dollar sale, average ticket, what's my average billable hour, if you will, if you're a service company. And then how often do my customers buy from me, right? What can I do to get them to come back more often? And then the last driver is your profit margins. What are the margins in your business? Now, within each of these blue squares, we could break that down into multiple things. You look at average dollar sale per each revenue source and number of attractions per each revenue source within the business. There's multiple different conversion ratios that you're going to have in your business. So, but this is the basic formula that works with all businesses no matter what size you are in. So let's break these down a little bit and look at some strategies that we could work with in here. So the first strategy I'm going to always work with my clients on is we want to get cash flow and money into the business, so we're going to look at profit margin strategies. So the first thing is everybody needs to know what their break-even is in their business. For those of the people that have a business, do you know what the break-even point is? If you don't, then you're running in chaos and trying to figure out where that's at. The next thing, you need to be able to measure everything in the business. You know, it could be profit per employees. There's a variety of different smart numbers that you need to be working on. Other things is know what are your higher margin items. I had this one client that I first started working with him, and he lost one of his largest accounts, which was worth about this was about a $500,000 company, and this one account was like about a 20% of all his revenue, and he was freaking out. So I just went back and I just asked him a simple question: because I wanted to go after low-hanging fruit. What is your most profitable service that you offer? He said, well, doing storage tanks. It's like, great. Let's start marketing and promoting that. This client has been with me for now. It's like 5 years right now, and we've been able to go from a $500,000, actually went back a little bit, to now we're over $1 million, but his profitability keeps going up every year. I mean, I think right now is like he's got about $50,000 more cash in the bank than he did last year, which is not bad for a $500,000 company. You need to sit down and take a look at firing your C and D clients. What does that mean? Those are the clients that suck your life out of you. Refer them to your competitors, and so let them suck their life out of them. Makes your life a lot easier. It's a nice, simple strategy. How do you fire a client?
Raise the rates.
Raise the rates. You'll appreciate. I had a CPA client that I was working with, and there was this one guy that was really sucking the energy out of him, and it kept calling him up, kept asking for some stuff, and so I said, let's raise the rate. So he raised the rate, and you know what happened? He paid it. It's like, crap. So 6 months later, he actually raised the rate again. And what happened? He paid it. It was like, crap, I can't get rid of this guy. He kept raising his rate. He is now his most profitable customer. He wanted the service, but he was only going to pay whatever you asked. And so you have to be careful when you think that. There was another client that was raising their rates. It was a medical transcription company, and she was afraid to raise her rates because she had this one big client. And I said, let's just go ahead and let's just say we're going to raise our rates 10% across the board. Well, she went ahead, and everybody was fine with it. Nobody had a problem but their big client. She was calling me up, freaking out. What are we going to do? And it's like, well, what did Jay say? Jay said, well, we can't take a 10% increase. Well, what can they do? I just didn't know. I didn't ask. Well, let's ask. So they went for, I think it was like a 4 or 5% increase, which was probably almost equaled more than all the 10% increases on our smaller clients. So yeah, it's all about, but you have to ask and not be afraid to ask. So now we have conversion rates. Speaking about asking, you got to ask for the sale. I've seen so many great salespeople go ahead and do great presentations and then stop. They don't really close the sale. The other thing is going in and really setting sales quotas. I've had my first client, he didn't have sales quotas at all for any of his salespeople. So what was that? What do you think his salespeople were doing? What do you think his salespeople were doing? They were just going through the motions because they didn't have a goal that they needed to shoot for. You need to have a sales process, a written sales process. How many people have a written sales process? Okay, interesting. Just 2. Because why do you need a written sales process? Because you need to know what step you need to know, and each step is a conversion. Because your goal isn't, and when you first meet somebody, is to sell them. Your goal is to get them to the next step in the process. And if you're doing that, you're building what? A relationship with the client instead of trying to sell them. Okay, so that's why it's really important to do it. And as what Carl and Hector were saying, you need to have targeted landing pages. You need to create your USP to be able to differentiate you from your competition. All these things will be strategies to help you increase your conversion ratio. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. Average dollar sale. Again, go back to increasing prices. providing a checklist. I had a client that was, this one was actually a nursery, and what we did is when people were checking out, they were buying their plants, we put a checklist up and say, these are some of the items that people find that's helpful in their projects that they do. And so what it was able to do is people go buy, need a shovel, need fertilizer, whatever it was, and so that increased the average ticket. But also, what happened? What's more profitable, the plants or the accessories? The accessories. So it also increased his profit margins at the same time. Okay? So then we're using sales scripts, or actually what we talked about is inputting your USP, your unique selling proposition that we talked about, talking about creating a guarantee for your business also, because that will help with your conversion ratios. And then the most important thing is really know what your current average dollar sale or your average billable hour is within your business. How many people know what that number is? Okay. So, but you know what it is for the whole company, because you might bill out, and then your bookkeeper might bill out something. Well, what is it for the total company? Because you need to know what that is. Because if you don't know it, then what can't you do? You don't know if any of these strategies are going to work to increase it. Okay? Number of transactions is you need to make sure to be able to increase average transactions, you need to be able to collect your client's vital information, your prospect's vital information. I mean, you'd be surprised how many times I'd walk into a new account and I said, okay, do you have a list of people that you've made proposals to in the past? It's like, oh, it's around here someplace. You know, it's around, but they don't know who to be able to go back and talk to. Just because they said no once doesn't mean that they're not ready for you later. Or the people that they did go with just pissed them off and did a poor job, which is now gives you a great opportunity to walk right in, right? Let's see what else is. The social media database. You know, in the old way to market was you'd buy a direct mailing list and then you would just go out. You just keep shooting it out, going out, going out, going out. What's so special about having a social media database? Two-way communication. You know, you put a post out on LinkedIn and then somebody comments on that post. Well, don't just say, oh, well, that was nice, somebody responded. Respond back. Comment back to them. Thank them for commenting on it and start this dialogue going back. And then what's really nice is, oh, you had this conversation going back with it, and then call the guy up and say, hey, I see that we're sort of been chatting a little bit on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is. Why don't we go grab a cup of coffee and get to know each other, and maybe we could help each other's business. It's a great way for you to develop relationships with your prospects out there. Just being able to telemarket to your customers, your current customer database, selling service agreements. You know, what are things that you could do to sell service agreements? Or another thing is, going back and getting people to go on is how many people have bought a book on Amazon, right? Every time you bought a book, what have they done? They suggested, oh, somebody who just bought that book also bought these books here. They're giving suggestions of other things that they do. How many people here are members of Amazon Prime? Right? All right. So they took $79 of yours for every year, and you keep it. Why do you do that? Because you get 2 days. It's like, okay, what difference? $79 for 2 days shipping. But what they find is, so where's the math? If they had 1 million customers at $79, how much revenue is that?
Only 79 million.
No, only, right? And what do they give? What do they really lose for that? Like, very little. You know, so what can you do within your company? But they provide some really good service has value to the customers, to value to you. That's why you'll go ahead and do that, right? And that's really sort of that VIP frequent buyer club. It's, this stuff isn't like brain surgery stuff. It's really simple, basic business principles, but you have to put that into a plan, a written plan. Otherwise, you just go, oh, that's a great idea, or let me try this, let me try that, let me try that. If you don't have a plan to put that together, what happens? You're just winging it and you don't know it. All right? All right, so let's go in. The next one is number of leads. Why do you think this one is the last out of the 5 ways? It's the most expensive. If I'm trying to help a client, one of my first things that I'm going to do that's a profit margin strategy is figure out what they're doing on the marketing and advertising side and cut out what's not working, because they'll go straight to the bottom line. But leads are the most expensive. So you have to really test and measure up front first before you can start adding and putting in some new strategies in there. But as what Carl and Hector was saying is by optimizing your website and having multiple websites, having a squeeze page or a separate website for individual products that you're trying to promote, which will then make it easier to do what? Convert them once they hit that site. If they come into your main site, and then what happens is they got to search for the product that they're looking for. If they can't find it quickly, boom, they're gone. They're going to go look to somebody else. So if you get them there with a keyword or whatever, you need to direct them right to a page that's going to address what they were looking for. And then that could be connected to your main website, and they could go and find more about you that way too. Does that make sense? Not like brain surgery stuff, like I said. So creating a referral strategy. How many people love referrals? How many actually have a written, active referral strategy that they follow? Interesting. If you love them so much, why don't you work at it? Or just wing it, right? Because we don't have a plan, we don't think about it on an ongoing basis. Going in here, and one of the things that Hector and Carl talked about was creating newsletters and being able to go in there. And this is a great, how many people think that newsletters help you generate business? Or they're just a good way to get people out? I had one client that it's engineering, they're sort of like an engineering firm. They do non-destructive testing. Does anybody know what that is? Oh, good, maybe you and I could talk. I've been working with him 5 years. I really don't know what he does. All except he does the safety testing on these big, large boilers and stuff like that. But he's the guy that we doubled his revenue over the last 4 years. What he started, I finally convinced him to do a newsletter. And when he created it, it looked like it was an engineer created it, but I said, okay, it's all right because it was going to engineers. And he was doing it, and he really never thought anybody was reading this. And so he was actually at one of his bigger accounts, and he was just finishing up. And usually when he was out there, it's like a plant shutdown, he's there for a week. And when the guy says, "Oh, I haven't seen your newsletter, your quarterly newsletter. Did you put it out yet?" It's like, "No, I'm going to do it when I get back." He goes, "Oh, you actually read it?" And he goes, "Yeah, some really good, valuable information for it. I passed it on to the other plant managers around the country." It's like, "Oh, great." So he felt really good. He came back and he called me up, and I was like, "So what did you do next?" "What do you mean, what do I do next?" "Get the names of those plant managers that he sent it to." So then he started calling them up, and within that, he was able to take on, I think he's gotten 2 clients, and each of those 2 clients is probably worth about $150,000 annually. So basically, those 2 clients is paid for his coaching for probably the next 5 years. Just one simple strategy that we have. And then using host beneficiary strategic alliances like what we're doing right here, okay? So with Carl and Hector, we all talk to the same businesses and we work together to help each other out. So let's finish up here and let's put some numbers to this, all right? So let's put this into a formula. So we want customers, revenue, profit. So let's say we have 400 leads. We convert 25% of them, gives us 100 customers. Our average transactions is 2. The average hour sales, 1,000. That gives us how much in revenue? 200,000. Our margins are 25%, gives us $50,000. So my background's in advertising, marketing research. My clients used to come up to me and say, "Steve, I really need some more money. You really need to help me out." So what would we do? We'd focus on the top of the formula, lead generation. So we go ahead, we put together a great campaign, and what do? We increase the leads by 50%. Is that good? Would you guys be happy with that? Let's see what happens. So our leads go from 400 to 600. The conversion rate's still the same average, and now we have 150 customers. Who would be happy with 50 more customers? Yeah? Okay. Transaction stays the same, average dollar stays the same. So now we have $300,000 in more revenue, right? We happy? All right. And then margins stay the same. So now we have 50% more profitability. Are we happy? I say no, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
This is working really hard. Harder than I want to work, because you got to deal with 200 more leads. How many people can deal with 200 more leads right now? You know, you have to deal with 50 more customers, right? Well, that's why we don't know that, because the conversion rate stayed the same.
Remember that part where I was talking about scheduling your nervous breakdown?
Right. So who would want to learn how to do the easy way to do this? All right, let's go in. So what we do at Action Coach is we don't focus on just one of these areas. We don't go hit and try to go for the home run. We go and sit there and say, what happens if we could just improve each of these areas, each of these 5 areas, by just 10%? So we sit down and we go in, and so instead of 400 leads now, instead of going to doubling it to 600, it's 440. So based on some of the strategies that we talked about, do you think you can increase the number of leads by just 10%? Okay, that's reasonable enough. All right, same thing with conversion rate. You start focusing on your USP. You start knowing what your if you just know what your conversion rate is right now, if you don't know it, that'll probably increase it by 5%. Just knowing what it is, because you're going to be more focused on what that number is. So going a 10% increase is going from 25 to 27.5%. Does everybody feel that they could do that if they knew what their closing percentage is and just increase it 10%? So we have a 10% increase now. So is our revenue more or less than working hard? What do you think? What? Nope, it's not. It's $292,000. But by also focusing and becoming more efficient, we're going to increase our margins by 10%. So we go from 25 to 27.5. Now our profits go from 50,000 to 80,000. So let's compare what it was. So working harder, we do really good because we have 160 more customers, our leads that we're generating. We have 29 more customers. We actually even get almost $7,200 more in revenue, but we don't get to keep as much. We're making $5,500 less than you're working smarter. You have more time to go spend with your family. You have more time to play golf. You have more time to enjoy life, which is why you're in business in the first place, right? How many people got into business because they want to work 100 hours a week? All right. Do you want to work for me? I'll take that.
For peanuts?
Right. Yeah, of course. So does this make sense? It's the easy way versus the hard way. So what? That comes up to 46% increase in revenue and a 61% increase in that bottom line profits. And those were some of the results that I showed you up front that working with my current clients are currently getting. And one was just over the first half of this year compared to the first half of last year. We were able to increase that profitability by 61% and have more cash in the business. Does that sound good? All right. So the question is that you need to do is, do you know what your 5-way numbers are? You have to know. If you can't, and even if you're just a salesperson, it comes in there. If you have your margins could be your commissions, and you might have different commissions on different products and stuff like that. So there are the different ways that you can measure. But this formula works if you put it to work. And that's basically what I wanted to talk to you guys today. So if you don't measure it, you can't what? You can't improve it. So that's the point I want to really get across to you today. You really need to know what these numbers are and put a plan together to be able to do that. So I'll end here with a quote from Jim Rohn. Does anybody know who Jim Rohn is? All right. So Jim Rohn, I'm going to end with these 2 quotes. These are my 2 favorite quotes from Jim. One is, don't wish your life was easier, wish that you were better. And you got to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And if you do those 2 things, I guarantee you will become more successful than you are today. It's as simple as that. He always has another one I don't put up, but you got to learn before you earn. And what are you doing to be able to learn how to put all this stuff together? And sometimes you could do it by outsourcing it, and just hire the people that know it and being able to do it and stuff. So the one thing that we could all guarantee here, that in 12 months, you guys are going to arrive. The question is where? Where do you want to be? But the whole thing is you guys control your destiny. Did you guys get some good information? Besides the good food and stuff like that, did you get some good, valuable information today? Okay. So now the question is, what are your next steps? From here, you could do 2 things. We really appreciate that you guys came out here today, and you could take the information that you have and go back and try to put that together. Or there might be some ways that Carl and Hector can help you with putting together your social media plan, or I can help you with driving the profitability of your business.
But the bottom line is, it's like they said, do you want to get mad or do you want to get even? You know, do you want to just take this information and say, oh, that was great, and then what are you going to do with it? Nothing. Or do you want to do something about it?
A great way to do it is to actually surround yourself with people who really know what they're doing. People who have great reputations of getting things done. That's what you're looking at here. When you look at W Squared Media Group and Steve Goranson, we get things done. That's when you hear people talk about us, they don't say that, oh, those guys did this, or they say they got it done. And that's what our guarantee says. It says we get it done or you don't pay. And that's what's really important about it. So we have a couple of things that are up here that are worth noting. We do a free analysis for our clients. This is something that's very different that we do versus other companies. Before we ever talk about what you need or anything like that, we go out and look at where you are. Because if we don't know where you are, how could we know what you really need? And that's a very important thing. It takes us about 6 to 8 hours to produce this analysis. It's a competitive analysis. We look at where you are and your top 3 competitors are. We look at all aspects of the internet, social, search, everything. And then we produce this report for you, and you could use it for whatever you want. We also provide in the proposal what things we think you should do. And you can take those to the bank if you want, or you can hire us to do them for you.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, if you come in and we do the free analysis and you walk away, what are you out?
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
The other thing is, we also have, for some of our clients who would like to try it, we're a Google AdWords company, so that we can provide you $100 worth of AdWords for 25 bucks. We often use this as a testing mechanism to make sure that the keywords that we want to jump on are the good ones.
And the offers.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not about getting on page 1. What's the ultimate goal? It's make money.
Clicks in the cash.
There you go.
All right, so, and then, you know, I guess the question is are you guys serious about growing your business? You want to increase your business, want to learn how to increase your profitability by 61%. If you are, what I'm offering here today is an hour-and-a-half free coaching session where we'll go ahead and take a look at where your business is, where your 5-way numbers are, what are the things that you need to do to grow your business. At the end of that, you'll see what the power of coaching is, and you'll sort of see if that's something that you want for me to help you, or just take the information and the direction you want and be able to go. My job is really I want to provide you guys with value so you can go in and grow your business. Because if you grow your business, that means the whole economy, everybody in Jacksonville's growing. All my other clients or businesses are going to grow because everybody's making money. Because the pie isn't set. The bigger the pie gets, the more money we all make. Does that make sense?
No government shutdowns here, okay?
So with that, we really appreciate your time. If you're interested and you want to do it, come up to us afterwards, give us your card, and we'll schedule a time to get together. So with that, enjoy some of the food that's left over.
So we're good.
Thanks for coming.
All right.